I'm going to cover basically our strategy and our vision. This is a board-approved presentation. We just had a new board elected. We have very senior executive levels from many of the service providers, tier ones. And our membership's quite large in the service provider, and I'll talk about that. So let me start. So what we're seeing is kind of unique right now. Number one is, obviously, service providers are trying to become just like the hyperscale cloud guys. They want a portal. They want to be everything automated. They want to deliver services at high velocities and so on. So I won't spend a lot of time there. You guys know this 100 times. But interestingly enough, their own customers are suffering from similar problems. Their own customers, the enterprises that they sell to, are dealing with moving to the cloud. And I came from Microsoft, spent a decade there, so I know what that feeling is like to go to the cloud. And then second, they're not only moving to one cloud, but have a multi-cloud strategy. And third, they can't move all their data yet to the cloud. So they have to have some data on-prem, some data on the cloud. And all of this is causing, a lot of complexity, a lot of anxiety. They're dealing with security postures that are beyond their control. They're dealing with how do they get application performance when their applications are SaaS in the cloud, and how can they get visibility it's running right. There are many, many other issues, including regulatory and data sovereignty issues. So these are forcing this kind of time and era for many of our members who are service providers and vendors that sells to the service providers to really look at what's really going on in the enterprise and start working to deliver on what the enterprise wants. So I'm going to talk more about that journey. So as you can see, the MEF's mission has changed. It started with Carrier Ethernet. For many that maybe don't know me, I was a co-founder for MEF in 2001. I only stayed about 6 months and left, so all of the success is due to most of the members, not me. But at that time, when we talked about Ethernet, it was only in the LAN, and getting Ethernet beyond the LAN was called blasphemy. And then 15 plus years later, it's everywhere. It's ubiquitous, and that's all you see is Ethernet, Carrier Ethernet specifically. So it's really powerful. But what we're doing is we're taking that same model, as you can see down here, this $80 billion market that was created solely by the MEF. We're leveraging that $80 billion market, and we have a large membership of service providers and vendors. And we're looking at the pain points in the industry, and we're figuring out how can we leverage the pain point, our membership, and our mission, and really have a very synergistic, harmonizing approach to this. And that's really what I'm going to explain here. What you'll see is our new mission is basically assured services. So we're taking the same rigor we did with Carrier Ethernet, applying it to new other services, and I'll talk about that. And that's going to be cloud-like, cloud-ready services, and we'll talk about that. And then finally, to deliver cloud-ready services, we have to have automation as part of that. So we're going to talk a lot about this orchestration side, and specifically, we're focusing on APIs. And I'll talk more about that. So big takeaway from the MEF. MEF is taking the gold standard for what we've done for 15 plus years in Carrier Ethernet, applying to other services, and I'll show you about it, and then adding in the automation APIs. So here's the first view of this kind of vision. Basically, you could see that the market for Carrier Ethernet has been large and continues to grow. But there's a lot more happening here. What we're seeing is that most of the enterprises want to get to clouds, and their service provider has always been their partner for connectivity. And upon this platform of connectivity, of whether it be layer 1 optical, Carrier Ethernet IP, there's ability to add on new services. And that's really what's emerging is as these enterprises go to a multi-cloud, hybrid multi-cloud strategy, their service provider, communication service provider, is the best partner to help them on that journey. And so what we're seeing is most of these CSPs, communication service providers, are going to become digital service providers, and they're going to go up the stack, adding in, what happened here? We lost the presentation. I don't know if it's me or. It's gone in the cloud. There we go. It's a good idea. So what you're seeing is this idea of not only having services that, as you move up the stack, are having that assured services, but they have to be orchestrated services, because that's really everybody wants. Machines that allow to provision and to close loop the assurer, the services are running right, And that's really our game here, is how did we deliver on that. So a couple years ago, we announced this idea called MEF 55. It's our framework for orchestration, service orchestration. And it talks about these reference points. And you're going to see them in the next presentation, talk much more deep about this. These reference points, they're musical in nature, but they represent many, many APIs on that reference point, okay? And so what you see is that the Sonata, Interlude are inter-provider APIs. This Legato is business systems to the service orchestrator API. And then from the service orchestrator down into SDN controllers, NFV Manos, it's Presto, or into even legacy EMS, NMS systems. And then below that, below the controller and Mano, we don't really care about it, but we did define a reference point called Adigio. Then obviously to the left, to the customers now, that's mainly looking like a portal, but in the future we're seeing automation emerge into a very large, multinational large enterprises, and they're gonna want APIs there within their own orchestration system. So these reference points, while I'm just giving you a very high level view, is well documented. You can download for free, MEF 55, and it gives you a really good understanding of these reference points and what an orchestrator is supposed to do, okay, a service orchestrator. A service orchestrator is basically supposed to take a service from one uni point to the other uni point, which could also be in the cloud or to a site, and it's supposed to orchestrate across all the various technology domains underneath, including inter-provider. Okay, so this is kind of very new to the industry, because a lot of times it was people with work orders trying to do all of this stuff, and now it's all done by machines, okay? And so we're on that journey. We're not fully all there yet as an industry, but we're definitely down this path in the journey. So I'm gonna talk about this MEF 3.0. This is our framework we launched last year at our big event, and our next big one's coming up at the end of the month. And that was MEF 17. And what MEF 3.0 is, takes that vision I just described, and we kind of put it in a package, a product packaging, if you want to think about it. So here we have services, that things I talked about, you know, carry Ethernet for sure, IP. And I'm going to talk about where we are in the journey of the services. We talk about our APIs. And I'm going to talk more about where our roadmap is on these APIs. We talk about, you know, certification. We have our own cloud-like certification that actually is very agile. So as changes in the specs and APIs happen, it automatically updates and recertifies. So it's not that static model anymore. And finally, we have a large community. I won't be able to spend a ton of time. But a lot of the work, for example, and what you'll see here, Sonata and so on, came out from some projects here, these reference implementation projects. So think about it this way. Instead of like writing paper and then going validate it, you can actually come out and write code, validate some of the ideas, and then come back and write the paper. So either way, and members have done both ways. And Sonata, we'll talk more about, we did it opposite. We started in the community, and then we brought it into standards, okay? So the big takeaway, this is our framework. It's a productization of the same vision I showed you, and that's all it is. Is this timer right? Because it was showing it. The timer is correct? Okay. So now you might think, hey, Pascal, that was a really big vision. I mean, that's a massive vision. And yes, you know, when we took Ethernet back in 2001, it took us 15 years to realize Ethernet ubiquitous all over the world. But what you're saying is the vision I just showed you is already being executed on for the last couple of years, and we're already coming out with lots of stuff this year and next year. And the vision is being realized much faster than I even anticipated. To start with, we already announced out our service definition for layer 1 optical, and that's fiber channel services and SONET services, and then LAN Ethernet over an OTN network. And that could all be orchestrated. We just obviously continue to evolve our carry Ethernet product, and we just announced managed access line. And obviously, that's all being orchestrated again with the proper APIs, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. IP services. We just finally described a 200-page document about how to describe IP in a language that everybody can talk about and APIs can understand. And that's being now put into a definition of a subscriber or service or an operator service so that this subscriber attribute can be used between both of that. Let me go back here. So that's actually new, and we're hoping in early 29 that this will come out. So this is already out, and it's a 200-page document. Lots of it took 2 years to get here. Now it's much easier. We'll define internet access service, IP VPN services This is going to be very big. Even though IP, MPLS, it's all being done, there was no common language between operators that everybody could understand. So this is the language that everybody understands. Think of it that way. Now, the more interesting ones that everybody talks about is SD-WAN. SD-WAN, the service definition, the attributes, will be coming out. You'll see the first release coming out in a month or so, and it'll actually define many constructs of SD-WAN, framework, topology, labeling, attributes, behavior of an SD-WAN, including application performance, and the ability to even certify an SD-WAN. Okay, so this is really big for the industry because I don't think anybody's ever defined that before. So that's come out. We put a year and a half plus into this, and so this is really big. Now, I won't talk about a little more, but we are going up the stack, and at my keynote, I will be talking about the Security as a Service program, so save the thunder for that time. Now, the more important one, I think, is this one. Basically, the Sonata one has gotten a huge, huge amount of traction. This is the inter-provider ability to orchestrate. How many people have heard of Sonata or this inter-provider APIs? Just raise your hand. Yeah, very few. So there's been a lot of noise since, I would say, late last year at MEF 17. We showed some prototypes of this when we started incubating it. And then again, at the Layer 123 Zero Touch Automation in Madrid, we talked about this, and there was some announcements about, I think, some operators showing some early types of interconnection. What this means is that two operators, if you remember the diagram, can talk to each other, and they can actually ask for a certain address, can they get an inventory of the address of what's capable for services, and then finally get a quote of that service, and then finally make an order of that and put an order. So that gets rid of all the paperwork of people, and it's all done by that portal, if you remember the slide. It's all done by that portal, if you think about it right here. The subscriber puts in his stuff in the portal. They talk to each other across this BSS to BSS Sonata interface. They check to see if the service is available, what kind of inventory, what kind of service, for the address, what's the price, and then finally put the quote in. So this is all new, and at MEF 18, you will see the first release come out, which is a month from now, and you're going to see a lot of announcements. So this is very big for the industry. Now, additionally, we're adding in the ability to not only do all the ordering, but actually turn up the service and test the service end to end, which is really this orchestrator called interlude APIs. So the first part was BSS to BSS, price and all that kind of stuff. And finally, the second part is after they negotiate and they order, then it goes down to their legato reference point into the orchestrator and says, okay, make that happen end to end. And that's a different part of the reference point called interlude. I'm not going to get into it, but the way we've decomposed it, it works really well. So think about it. This is a really big thing from the industry. For the first time, we're seeing operators have the ability to automate their workflows where a subscriber can order a service just like you get from the hyperscale OTT cloud guys, and it automatically flows through their network and partners' network at the same time. So this is very big. I won't talk too much on certification, but as you can see, we have a cloud-like certification. As we have new APIs that come out, as we have new services come out, it just gets added on. We just go, MEF 3.0 R2 is coming out. So R2 will have the ability to add those Sonata APIs I talked about for orchestration. So that will come up for certification following the next few months. And then finally, I won't spend a ton on this, but the community, if you want to think about it, has many parts to it. But the most important one is we have these implementation projects that are running in our own private cloud. Instead of using the public cloud, we have to build our own because we have actual physical network functions that we have to put in to test. So we had to have it in our own lab. So we call it MEFnet. It's just an IaaS infrastructure with the ability to add in PNFs, physical network functions. So we have a bunch of projects in there. In fact, you come to MEF 18, there's 19 proof of concepts in all these areas from automating commercial interaction. And this is actually another API about blockchaining, using blockchain to automate settlements. So that's an API not come out yet, but there's already POC showing on this stuff. A lot of the Sonata stuff came out in the early days in the incubation side around fulfillment and activation. We also have service assurance, SD-WAN, and universal CP. So these are the areas, and you can see that 50+ companies participate in this area. So we take a lot of these projects and we put them in our implementation projects to further incubate and get them to standardization. So that's your big takeaway. So I'm going to leave you with the last 5 minutes I got left here with the following. Your big takeaway is MEF, yes, it's the gold standard for carrier Ethernet, continues to be the gold standard for carrier Ethernet. We're not de-investing, we're continuing to invest carrier Ethernet, and carrier Ethernet continues to grow leaps and bounds. However, just like all connectivity services, carrier Ethernet, IP, optical, the demand continues to go up. Our members have massive capacity and massive investments in this area, but the margins continue to drop as any industry commoditizes. That's what happens. So what we've done is we are still invested, believe in this area, and has to be supported. And we need to make sure now they get optimized for the commoditization, they get optimized through automation. So people are not involved as much, but more of automation of machines, doing a lot of that provisioning and assurance and so on. So that's a given. I showed you a lot about those APIs. But what's really emerging to become a digital service provider is you got to take this platform, if you think about it, they are in the middle between all the clouds, and they're in the middle to all the branch sites and to the enterprises. And really what they have to do, our members have to do, and all the communication service providers worldwide, in my opinion, is they have to be thinking about how do they build on that connectivity platform and add in all these newer services that are designed, that are much, much, much higher margins and much, much higher sophistication. That's what we're talking about. And if you think about it, SD-WAN is the bridge into the virtualized world. That's why we've made a very strategic decision to invest heavily there, because we realize it is the gateway to all these virtualized services that are emerging that the enterprise customers want. So this is what you're going to see in the next couple of years. You'll see more and more of this being launched out from MEF. But today, these 4 areas are already being developed in MEF and coming out. And APIs would have to be related to all this work. So again, we have APIs in all these areas, these 3, SD-WAN following, and inter-provider for sure. And then as this emerges, we'll add more APIs. So the big takeaway is we must embrace the shift to virtualized services. You're hearing NFV everywhere. It's the big thing happening. You hear about virtualized services for many reasons. And we are also embracing this because we believe our members want this, okay? And what we believe is with that new shift, the revenue opportunity for our CSPs with their existing platforms of connectivity, their ability to make lots of more money in margin is by far much more productive and much more opportunistic for them to leverage that platform and to deliver the services that enterprise really want. And you'll see, I think, in the panel today, if you hang out, I think you have Microsoft is here, Gert from Microsoft. I'm not sure if there's another enterprise talking about what's going on in the enterprise. So I hope you can all join us from F18. It's once a year. There's a lot going on. I'm not going to spend a ton of energy on it, but it's in Los Angeles. It's the end of the month. Not only will we have workshops like this, but on all kinds of different APIs, services, so on. War Dinner, we have all those implementation projects. We have a hackathon going on there, and that'll be on SD-WAN, to adding on APIs. Lots and lots of big service providers at the very senior exec levels talk about their vision, where they're going. You name them. We have some really great keynote speakers. And I hope you get to come out. And again, end of the month, if anybody wants to go, just let me know, Pascal@mef.net. Okay, and I could even get you some tickets at discounted rates potentially. But it's a very heavy conference, really great conference for networking and really get understanding the industry. So again, you can just send me an email, Pascal@mef.net if you're interested in going. Okay, with that, I think I'm just at 1 minute 32, and I'll give that back to Johan.
Any questions for Pascal?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there is similar initiative from ONAP community about making the standard APIs between the operators.
So we're working with ONAP hand in hand. So ONAP's building the actual orchestration code, and the external APIs leaving the ONAP is we're working with them. In fact, the key guy that drives the external API project in ONAP is our LSO chair in the MEF.
Okay, so
we're working very close together.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks.
Yeah, we're working with many STOs together, including. So we've taken a a syndication approach to this model. We're not trying to do this alone. We understand the industry has to move fast. And we're working with a lot of software developing organizations or standard developing organizations and open source projects. Okay, I think that's it, right?
Any other question?
Great.
If not, I'd like to thank Pascal.